You wake up. It's a normal day. The sun is shining, birds are singing, the coffee is brewing. You glance at your phone, maybe scroll through a few headlines. You have plans for the evening, perhaps a dinner with friends, or just a quiet night in. You step outside, breathe in the air, oblivious. What you don't know, what you couldn't possibly know, is that millions of light years away, an event of unimaginable power has just unfolded. A star, far grander and more massive than our own sun, reached the end of its life, collapsing in on itself, forming a black hole, and in its death throes, it unleashed a cosmic cannon blast directed straight at us. This isn't a meteor strike, or a solar flare, or even a supernova in our own galaxy. This is something far more ancient, more distant, and infinitely more deadly. This is a gamma ray burst, the most powerful explosions in the entire universe. In a matter of seconds, they can release more energy than our sun will emit in its entire 10 billion year lifespan. And if one of these beams, narrowly focused like a cosmic laser, were to sweep across Earth, it wouldn't just be bad. It would be an apocalypse unlike anything humanity has ever conceived. The terrifying truth about a gamma ray burst is that we would have absolutely zero warning. None. These bursts travel at the speed of light. By the time the first gamma rays reached our atmosphere, the event itself would already be over, millions of light years in the past. There would be no distant twinkling star signaling its approach, no early detection system, no scientific alert. One moment, everything would be normal. The next, the world as we know it would begin to unravel. Imagine for a fleeting moment looking up at the sky. Perhaps you're out walking the dog, or simply gazing out your window. For a fraction of a second, an unearthly glow might appear, not unlike a faint, high-altitude aurora, but with an intensity that seems to sear the very air. This brief, almost imperceptible flash would be the first and only visual cue. Then, the real transformation would begin. The sky, a familiar blue just moments before, would start to take on an ominous, sickly purple hue, swiftly deepening into a murky, toxic brown. This isn't some artistic rendering of a disaster, it's the signature of our atmosphere being fundamentally rewritten. The gamma rays, colliding with nitrogen and oxygen molecules in the upper atmosphere, would create vast quantities of nitrogen oxides, chemicals that would paint the sky in shades of planetary death. And here's where the true horror begins. Our planet's primary shield against the sun's lethal ultraviolet radiation, the ozone layer, would be utterly destroyed. Not over days, not over hours, but within a mere 10 seconds. 10 seconds is all it would take for the high-energy photons from the gamma-ray burst to rip apart the ozone molecules, leaving our planet exposed, naked to the unfiltered fury of the cosmos. Half of Earth, the side directly facing the burst, would be instantly bathed in a flood of deadly radiation. This isn't a gradual sunburn. This is a cosmic oven. The immediate destruction would be catastrophic. With the ozone layer gone, the sun's full spectrum of ultraviolet radiation, normally filtered out, would slam into the Earth's surface with an intensity unimaginable. Think of it as turning on a super-powered tanning bed, but one that cooks everything it touches. Exposed skin would suffer instant, agonizing burns. Eyes would be seared blind within moments. But the impact would go far beyond just human suffering. All plant life on the surface, from the mightiest redwood to the smallest blade of grass, would begin to die within hours. Photosynthesis, the very engine of life on Earth, would cease. The cellular structures of plants, unable to cope with the onslaught of radiation, would simply break down. Forests would wither, crops would blacken, and the vibrant green tapestry of our world would turn to an ash-like gray. This wouldn't be a slow decline. It would be a sudden, universal blight. The oceans, often seen as a sanctuary, would offer no escape. The immediate collapse of the ocean food chains would begin instantly. Phytoplankton, the microscopic organisms that form the base of almost all marine life, are incredibly sensitive to UV radiation. They would be incinerated en masse in the upper layers of the ocean. Without these vital producers, every creature above them in the food chain, from krill to fish to whales, would face immediate starvation. Imagine the sheer scale: billions upon billions of organisms dying simultaneously, turning the once thriving oceans into vast, silent cemeteries. This isn't a hypothetical future event. This is mass extinction beginning in real time, unfolding before any surviving eyes could even register the horror. But the nightmare wouldn't be confined to the initial blast zone or the immediate aftermath. The toxic atmosphere, laden with those nitrogen oxides, would begin to spread worldwide, carried by global winds. Within days, perhaps weeks, every corner of the planet would feel its insidious touch, regardless of which side initially faced the burst. The sky everywhere would become a perpetual, suffocating twilight. This poisoned air would then precipitate as acid rain, far more potent than anything we've ever experienced from industrial pollution. This rain would literally dissolve everything it touched. Buildings would corrode at an accelerated rate, metallic structures would rust into dust, and the few remaining plants would be doused in a corrosive bath, accelerating their demise. Rivers and lakes would turn acidic, killing aquatic life that somehow managed to survive the initial radiation wave. Following this, a period akin to a nuclear winter would descend upon the planet. The vast quantities of dust, soot from widespread fires ignited by the initial radiation, and chemical changes in the atmosphere would block out the sun's light. Global temperatures would plummet dramatically. Days would become perpetually dim, nights would be plunged into an unimaginable cold. The Earth, once a vibrant, living planet, would resemble a frozen, scarred wasteland, shrouded in perpetual twilight and lethal precipitation. This combination of factors would lead to an almost unimaginable scale of devastation. An estimated 90% of all species on Earth would be wiped out. From insects to elephants, the biodiversity built over billions of years would be erased in a cosmic blink. And what of humanity? For any survivors, the future would be a brutal, agonizing existence. Even if shielded from the initial radiation burst, the long-term effects would be inescapable. Cancer rates would explode globally. The pervasive radiation, the toxic air, the lack of food, and the extreme cold would create a living hell. Those who didn't perish quickly would face a slow, painful death from disease and starvation. Our technology and power grids, the very backbone of modern civilization, would be utterly fried. The electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, generated by the gamma-ray burst's interaction with Earth's magnetic field would overload electrical systems across continents. Satellites would fall from the sky. Communication networks would collapse, and power stations would cease to function. Without electricity, without communication, without the ability to transport goods or access clean water, civilization as we know it would crumble within weeks. Hospitals would fail, supply chains would vanish, and societal order would quickly devolve into chaos. In such a scenario, the only faint glimmer of hope for any human survival would be for those incredibly fortunate individuals who happen to be deep underground at the precise moment of impact. Subterranean bunkers, perhaps deep subway systems, or even certain caves might offer a temporary sanctuary from the initial blast and some of the immediate radiation. But even then, emerging into a world devoid of life, poisoned, frozen, and dark, would present an almost insurmountable challenge. They would face a planet transformed into an alien, hostile environment, a tomb for nearly all life. The thought of such an event is truly terrifying, precisely because of its suddenness, its power, and our utter helplessness against it. We live on a fragile blue marble, constantly bombarded by cosmic phenomena, yet largely protected by the sheer vastness of space and the relative stability of our corner of the galaxy. A gamma-ray burst is a stark reminder of the incredible forces at play in the universe. forces that can, in an instant, erase billions of years of evolution and the entirety of human history. Let's hope that cosmic lottery never lands on us.